require the support to have helpers at home. And most of them, by and large, end up being really reliable and, really becoming part of the family. So began my journey of developing and nurturing a support system and support network, which I continue to do, all along. And then came a move to the US with none of the support at home and the network I had developed in Singapore, and that made all these challenges even more real. With really strict pickup times at daycare, a job that was 65 kilometers away and required driving to the train station, a train journey, a bus journey at the other end, come rain or snow, made it really difficult. And added with that, the prospect of becoming a single mom staring at me at that point, and other jobs in the US becoming scarce soon after 9/11, I made the decision to return to a more friendly, supportive Singapore. Back in Singapore, when it came to finding a school for my daughter, having seen the world by this time, I had choices. Do I put her in a system that focuses heavily on content and grades? Example, the Singapore local system or even an Indian international school? Or should I go the other way, which is a school that nurtures the personality, though it's less rigorous, especially in the early years in terms of education content? I chose the latter. It was a trade off that I felt was worth it. And over time, actually, I realized that even the best of schools that claim to be nurturing children, holistically and developing skills, do fall short in preparing young people for the realities of the modern world. My career progressed well. My role in a tech MNC required me to travel very frequently. But the reliable help at home and a support network of good friends, I would just leave my daughter often while I juggled home and a career. So, to Ritika's point on nanny, my daughter, I did rely a lot on nanny to bring up my daughter and, stole as much quality time as I could at that time with her. And times had changed by then, and I saw a number of moms of all socioeconomic classes doing this very, kind of difficult balancing act. As Tarini became a teen, I decided to start volunteering at a gender equality group in Singapore, and I eventually took up board positions there. It gave me visibility into challenges that moms of all social classes were facing, not just the more educated, more well-off women, but across social classes. Also saw how many of the problems that people face stem from an inability to solve problems, to communicate with people around them, and to understand the world in a nuanced manner. And these are critical skills that people need to face the world and actually even for mental health. And conversely, I saw that people who were the happiest had good relationships and were the ones who were good at life. And this was not necessarily correlated with how well they were educated. And I'll cover this as well. Something else I noticed is that women, especially moms, have the experiences to make them good at these skills. But most of the time, we don't realize how skilled we are. We juggle so many different things. We try our best not to let things fall through the cracks, whether it's the child's diet or playtime or studies or family trips, while still also caring for our parents and managing the house. So, doing this whole plethora of things that we do. Um, but I do want to make it clear that by no means am I putting women on a pedestal and glorifying everything that society expects women to do. I'm just saying that, by doing all this, it's putting women and especially moms in a special position to navigate life and the challenges that we face. I often think, if only the young women and the young girls we all meet know the value of these skills as they go through adulthood. All right. So as Tarini grew up and she left for college, and after one more cross continental move to the US and back to Singapore, I found myself at crossroads in my career. My role in a growth startup that was in Indonesia was very fulfilling. It was a lot of fun. I did feel a calling to make a more significant impact in the world. And this desire stemmed from my experience as a mother and as a global leader, where I witnessed firsthand what young people are struggling with, especially in the workplace. In a world that's dominated by technology and devices, social media, peer pressure, and even existential crises like climate change and AI, yesterday or even today's education is simply not preparing our young people for tomorrow. So I wanted to leverage my experiences to help them for a world that is very little like the world I grew up in, and not even like the world my daughter grew up in, not that long back. And a future that, the future that we are talking about is something that is even the smartest minds cannot foresee. And we have very few, I mean, we have several scenarios that have been discussed, but we don't know that any of them are actually going to pan out the way that people think they are. So it's a really uncertain future, and this is a time like no other time in humanity's history, I would conjecture. So I've made a major life and career change. Transitioned from the corporate world to become an educationist, focusing on developing critical human skills. And our focus is mainly on teenagers and beyond. My experiences in motherhood have taught me the importance of skills like empathy, resilience, and leadership. And these are the lessons and skills that I and my company want to share with the next generation. But the decision to change careers is not an easy one. Clearly, there is it's not easy to leave a successful career path with a predictable paycheck and start something. So lots of respect now to all entrepreneurs that I come across. Also, practical obstacles like acquiring new skills, not understanding enough in a formal fashion about child psychology, for instance, navigating really the unfamiliar terrain of the ecosystem. But it's really a passion for making a difference in education that's outweighed all the doubts and fears. So I've taken the plunge, transitioned to education now. Now, as an educationist, I fully understand the impact and importance of 21st century skills. And this has significantly impacted my role as a mother of a now an adult daughter living her own independent and successful life at the other end of the world. It's quite interesting that motherhood with an adult daughter has become a two-way street where I learn from Tarini as much as she learns from me. Our conversations have evolved into an mutually beneficial exchanges where we both share insights and perspectives. I ask her about the latest in the workplace where she's working. Incidentally, she's joined an agency which is very similar to the agency I had joined back, when I first started working. So she's in a similar role, which of course has evolved a lot in the many years that have gone past. I tell her about what I'm seeing in the world. I do give her financial advice. She teaches me about popular culture, so it's an interesting exchange. I don't lecture her, but when I want to make a point, I kind of try and do it a little bit more subtly. I mention something I've done or somebody else that we both respect and like has done, and I hope that she's gets the idea. And if she needs help, like when she got stuck in a foreign country with a visa issue, she did reach out to me. So she knows I'm there for her if she needs help. So the relationship has kind of evolved and changed as it must as kids grow. So to sum up, I just want to sum up a few of the lessons that I've learned as a corporate leader, as an educationist, and as a mother. First is that content based or traditional education is a baseline. It is not a guarantee for success by any means. Of course, what success is something that we all have to define for ourselves and for our kids, and the kids have to define it for themselves as well. We usually say, I just want my child to be happy. So that's all. That's what most of us, I guess, said when we were pregnant or when our child was growing up and so on. So happiness, in my view, is a very good measure of success. Second is high grades without the accompanying human skills, the kinds that I just talked about, ability to problem solve or the resilience that you have or ability to have an impact. These kinds of human skills, without them, just having the high grades is not going to be sufficient. I've seen many a colleague or a friend with brilliant academics not really doing that well in the workplace or even in life in general. And conversely, many a successful entrepreneur or even a corporate leader with what we might call, as parents, mediocre education do brilliantly in life. And the difference is the human skills. And that's what, as parents, we all need to realize. Thirdly, we have no idea what the future holds and what kinds of jobs will be there. What is certain is that we are at an inflection point. These points in time are always accompanied by uncertainty, volatility, etc. Skills, what we call either 21st century skills or some bodies call them durable skills and we call them human skills. They are probably the best gift we can give our kids. And those skills will help them navigate the future much more so than overly focusing on subjects and grades. And finally, women are especially geared to be able to role model these skills to kids. Mothers juggle so many activities and roles, problem solving, communicating, complexity, managing the complexity of the world and our surrounding, having resilience, having impact. Developing these skills is the best recipe for success of kids in future. So, just to wrap up, I'd say don't sweat the small things. Give as much, if not higher, importance to your kids' abilities to solve problems and various other human skills. Have fun, being parenting. Just enjoy the parenting experience. Have fun and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and caretakers of young people. Thank you.
So, well, that was indeed an incredible discourse by Sunita ma'am on how she balanced motherhood with a career in education. Now we are pretty excited to invite Dr. Parul Minhas, who shall share her knowledge on how educational institutions can better support mothers. Parul ma'am, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, but I'm still awestruck by what Sunita just, how she wrapped up years and years of wisdom in just 15 minutes. And it's the most interesting aspect that I would want to share is that this morning I was writing a LinkedIn post about something that she very beautifully put across. I haven't still posted that. And while she was talking, you were talking about your relationship with your daughter. So I was reflecting upon the fact that what I believe is that the single most important need that we as humans and children also have is autonomy, right? They need to feel that they have some control over their lives. But how much ever we understand it for ourselves, we rarely understand it for our children, right? And
That's
the
true.
most important thing here as parents to understand is that we so autonomy, I won't say that leave a 3-year-old alone, to explore the wild world. That does not mean autonomy. You have to have, your circle of protection around them because you have to keep them safe. But as they grow up, you need to keep expanding that circle to give more space for mistakes, for experimentation, and for them to control more and you to control less. And as children grow up, that protection should convert into connection. Like beautifully, she put across that how her daughter now shares a beautiful connection where they, teach each other things, learn from each other, and know they are there for each other. So as a mother, she's not afraid that if I made a mistake or if I'm stuck somewhere, the first thing I'm going to hear is that, oh, you always do that. the first thing she knows she's going to hear that, okay, it's fine, we'll figure that out. So that is the kind of conversation we need to have with our children, but that happens when we start giving them respect and autonomy from the very beginning. But I think currently what is being misunderstood at homes as well as in schools is we say that, okay, you should respect children, but that does not mean that you accommodate all kinds of behaviors. And then they say that, oh, all these international schools and all these people, they are making children, yeah, they're letting them do whatever they want, and children are actually turning into, you know, monsters, as you say, or when they grow up as teenagers, their behaviors are not really um, socially acceptable, we should say. But the point here is that's because those children are probably given too much of autonomy without the connection. So if you set those ground rules at education institutes or at home, that this is how, and you model those values yourself, like you said, that mothers are at a very, very great position to model that values. In fact, everybody in the child's environment, but because the first connection is with the mother or the primary caregiver, whoever that is, so the child, at least in the initial years of their life, they're going to follow that. They're going to, uh, it's not going to happen intentionally, but it's going to just happen. So I always say that because I jumped into because I was so awestruck by Sunita, but I wanted to start with my own journey, and for me. My own journey, and the way I've evolved as a person, as I totally attribute that to my motherhood, because I knew very early on that I have to be a great role model. I have to fix myself if I want to raise my child a certain way, so I have to raise myself first. So, in order to do that, I worked a lot on myself. It was like 90% working on myself and 10% making sure that the child is connected, right? So that way it really works effortlessly if parents are ready to do that. I see a lot of parents struggling, that children are not listening, they are onto their devices all the time, they have behavioral issues, they have issues with the academics, and so on and so forth. but what really surprises me is that they're not able to see the kind of connection and the environment they're providing, and what are they taking care of, how they're modeling their own behavior and character, like you said, even those 21st century skills that Sunita you mentioned, and very beautifully, they are actually the human skills. So it is no coincidence that the more AI or the more artificial world is becoming prominent around us, the more we need to stay grounded and connected to our human qualities. Why did that not happen in 20th century or 18th century, that we were talking about these skills? Why are we talking about these now? And what these skills are the ones that we've always needed, right? But probably with so many other distractions, the focus has been a little off, and we need to bring that back. So if your child, and I think it starts from home itself. Although I talk about the design of educational spaces, but I found out from my research that the two most important uh, factors that determine a child's um, happiness, if you would say, holistic health, if you would say, or the possibility of self actualization. The two most important factors are a secure relationship with an adult So in most cases it is a mother, but it could be a teacher, it could be a father, it could be any primary caregiver. If the child during their formative years has one very secure relationship with an adult, and a nurturing environment, an environment that offers and fulfills the three basic psychological needs, which are autonomy, competence, and um, relatedness. So the child is able to feel in control. The environment is making the child feel competent, and the child relates to the environment and the people in the environment. So the if these two things are taken care of, it becomes very, it becomes like a cakewalk to raise children. Like in earlier they used to say that it takes a village to raise a child, but the village has to be in the right place, right? The village has to be in the right position. The environment of the village has to be good. The people in the village have to be modeling the values that they want to see in the child. So I think, and also what I have learned from my own journey is that motherhood should come with the basic knowledge of child psychology. It is very, very unfortunate to say that so many, not even motherhood, parenthood, I would say, that so many parents who have children have zero knowledge of child psychology. Even I would say myself, but I chose to put myself through it all. I read all the child psychology books that I could get my hands on, about positive psychology, about developmental stages, about how children learn, even the neuroscientific aspects of how the brain physiology, neuroplasticity. So these are the things that we should be taught if we want to rear a generation of great humans. I mean, there should be a primary condition before having children, and that's what, not even for parents but for teachers as well. So there are many teachers you'll see in the same school. There is one teacher who's struggling with that same class of 20, and in the next class you will see another teacher who's, having a ball with the kids, and the children are enjoying and the teacher is enjoying, and they are having, and the teacher does not come out totally drained from that class. She comes out energized, because children are sources of great pure energy. But we need to understand how it works with them. So the educators and the parents really need to get those things in place before taking up the responsibility of, uh, I don't like to use the word raising children, because children are much more risen already. So our education systems actually keep dragging them down throughout their lives. But if we are able to, for me, I feel successful as a mother when I see curiosity in my child's eyes, even at the age of 15. So the other day he comes to me, and I take turmeric supplements, and he's like, "Can I borrow a pill from you?" I said, "Why?" "Oh, I just need it." So he takes away that pill, and the next morning I see that pill in his toilet with a little cutter cutting across the pill to see what's inside. And it's all messed up and all. I said, "What's that?" "I wanted to see if there's some liquid in there or a powder." I mean, so, and how many of us as adults wonder this, that, "Oh, we're popping in a pill, what's inside?" We don't even care. But if that curiosity, he had that curiosity when he was 4 years, and he has this curiosity when he's 15 years. So that makes me feel that, okay, that makes, that feels like a winner, that okay, the child has that spark in the eyes alive. Because the education system that we have does its best to turn off that spark. So we at Education Design International, for me, it was the best thing that happened to me in my life after my child. that I got connected to this company, Education Design International, because during my PhD, I created a set of guidelines of how do we create environments that help children thrive, that help them become holistically healthy. So I create this set of 27 guidelines, and there's a whole lot of research behind it about neuroscience, about this very lovely concept of salutogenesis. And after I'm done creating these guidelines, I get to meet the Education Design International CEO through one of his publications. I wrote to him and he said, "Okay, let's meet. Your work looks interesting." And he shows me the pictures of the schools that they are creating. And I was like, wow, I mean, is this already happening? And it felt like somebody was already doing what I was just visioning and visualizing. So after that, I was really desperate to join these people and work with them. And it's ever since, it's been 3 years that I've been working with them. And it's amazing, and they are there to pick up every innovative concept and you know put that in their schools. And their question to the client is that, okay, you tell to what uh, to what extent you want to push your boundaries, because we have everything in our palette. We can give you the best environment, not only physically, but because our company also has a set of educators, very innovative educators who understand how learning happens and how education happens. So we are ready to give you what you want. So it is you for you to decide how open your minds are and to what extent you want to push the boundaries. So I'm really waiting if during my lifetime this work that we are doing, it becomes mainstream, because there are still millions and millions uh, children and schools in the world which are still following the old paradigm. And even the school where my son goes, and he's like, what is the use of your research to me if you can't help me? And I'm like, maybe I'll be able to help your children. But currently, it's this change is happening, but it is painfully slow. And it is my utter pleasure to come to a platform like this and connect with such innovative minds who are already steering forth and facilitating this change to happen sooner than later. Yes. Did I talk too much?
No, no, no. It was absolutely wonderful to hear you. It was like music to our ears.
Thank you. But I
So,
had this page where I had written down the points that I wanted to come up with, but sorry, I didn't speak any of those actually. So if you want me
randomly
to speak
also.
for 15 more minutes, I can.
For sure, for sure. Right, right. Parul ma'am, you highlighted so many diverse points with an amazing finesse. And after such an amazing viewpoint on discourses on motherhood and education, now it's time that I invite all of you to explore the intersection of child psychology, neuroscience, and educational environments. And I invite you for this group discussion where you have to discuss on how understanding of these areas can lead to more supportive policies and environments for mothers in education. The stage is all yours. Let's start the group discussion.
Okay.
Ritika ma'am, if
So
you would like to
Ritika, you can
start.
start. Yeah. Let's keep the order
So I
going.
think so essentially, my entire, but I would want to explain STEM a little bit more because I think the understanding is a little contrived. Before we start addressing this question, a lot of people ask me what STEM education is all about, and a lot of people understand it as science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and they've also included reading and art and mental health and a lot of things to it, and made it stream and STEAM and all those terms. But in actuality, the way I understand it, after having spent years in this entire stream, as they say, is that it's actually a strategy. It is a way you would want to conduct any classroom, be it science oriented or even an arts topic, or if you want to talk about a battle or a war, or how things happened. STEM is more about creating that critical thinking environment, right? In the class, how do you get children to actually break down something, empathize with it, and figure out what could have possibly happened, or maybe what should have happened, where did we go wrong, what did we do right, even if it's a scientific experiment or if it is a historical occurrence or something that you're going through as a problem right now. uh, what STEM really does is it helps you break down and look at a problem from different perspectives. But while you're doing it, it requires the child to have a basic understanding of perspective, and a basic understanding of research. How do you go about gathering information? How do you look at building logic in it? How do you look at, even analyzing a problem? And that's where the role, I think, of a facilitator or, even a parent comes in. How
I think so. Session got stuck. Uh,
Oh, I thought it
yeah.
was me.
Yeah, it got, no,
I
no, it
think
was just
it's
due
at
to a,
Ritika's end.
I think it's
yeah,
Ritika's end. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, ma'am,
she's
you're back.
back. She's
Please,
back.
please go ahead. There was some technical
You
glitch due to which
you
you got,
froze, Ritika. Oh, she's gone.
yeah, she will be rejoining. So, but then meanwhile she rejoins, you can please keep your points.
Sunita, would you like to?
Yes.
I am back. I think I just kept talking in my flow and I realized that I was completely lost. So
Okay.
Yeah.
if you can guide me what was the last thing you heard, I think I'll be able to pick it up from there.
So
Because
you were telling us about STEM, that how is it a way of learning, but
Yes.
their children require some guidance on how to go about that.
right. So I think, yes. So, STEM is basically a way of, helping children look at a problem, also understand how to code it, how to decode it, how to analyze it. And I think, when we are creating our learning experiences, like, it was very rightly put out that, education doesn't really mean, it's not about the content that's being taught. It's more about how these situations, problems, things are being decoded by the child. And that's where, as facilitators, we and as parents even need an understanding of how do you look at building these skill sets. And like you rightly said, the environment that the child is in overall needs to be really augmented towards this kind of learning. And I'm guessing the environment doesn't only include the physical environment, it includes the kind of people that are there in this environment. I think
Yeah,
that
it's the
I think
social
Parul
and
had
the
already put
social
it out well.
environment
So
and the physical environment both. Yes.
yeah, I think some of these points have already been put out there, and I just thought I'd put them in the STEM perspective because a lot of people, a lot of educators want to understand how to integrate STEM. And the thing is that STEM is not cannot be really integrated into a curriculum. It has to be integrated into the person facilitating the curriculum first. You
Hmm.
have to understand it yourself before you can create objectives and outcomes, or create your lesson plan, augment the seating in your classroom, figure out how you want to conduct a particular session. All of that comes about only after you understand the concept first of whatever you're talking about, and then figure out how you're going to leverage that, how you're going to leverage different thinking routines, outcomes, and all those things into facilitating it. And this is
Hmm.
an ongoing process. It's not like a template that can be given to you by anybody, and that you just can rattle off in a class. It has to be something that is very intuitive. It has to
Hmm.
be customized as per content and context. So a lot of things that we might say over here might seem to be very far fetched, but the point what we are sort of bringing about is that whoever is listening right now has to sort of imbibe it the way that fits them best. And there
Hmm.
are various ways. A lot of times when we've been doing a lot of research on how do you actually decode this for people, so that it's easier for them to so that it's easier for us to train facilitators as well as talk about it to parents. So people talk about design thinking, we talk about computational thinking, scientific inquiries, various ways of conducting an inquiry. And the thing is that really What you need to understand is, very, very broadly so, steps are: how do you empathize with the problem, any given topic and content? How are you giving children access to that wealth of knowledge? What kind of libraries do you have? How are you giving them, the knowledge and understanding to actually sift out what's relevant for them for that particular topic? How do you get them to gather that information, channelize it, zero it down? Are you building that research skill around it? Then after that, how are you helping the children to arrive at understanding the problem? That is hypothesizing it, maybe also even putting it down in lesser words, and also sort of then looking at how do you decode it, how do you build ideas around it, how do you understand it. And you know what, it's not just science. You can actually even teach the battle of Plassey in the same way. I mean, it's not
Hmm.
really, it's not subject specific. It isn't just about math and science and technology. It is about literally everything, even general life situations that the child goes through. And not only are these critical learning skills for children, I think as facilitators, these are more important for us, because we spend a huge chunk of our lives not thinking and knowing these skills. I mean, this is where it is. And I think my biggest struggle as a trainer is not with the children. It's more with the adults that one works with, to even understand that how are you, we keep talking about these 21st century skills, but how are you actually going to facilitate them in the classroom? Because the most important person in the class to me has to be the facilitator, because she's passing on a lot of her own skills, a lot of her own understandings to the child. And when I say passing on, doesn't mean from a content perspective or from a lack of objectivity perspective. What we need to train our children as parents as well as, and I'm saying train in the sense is, how do you look at a problem, how do you gather that information? They need to know that they need to gather information first. So I'll give you a very small instance about this, and this is, it's as basic as this. A lot of children these days, parents, I look at it, and this is something that's happened right in the morning, so I remember this really fresh. They don't let their children cross even a small road.
Hmm.
And this is life skills I'm talking about. I'm going outside the classroom because it's easier to understand this in a classroom format. But you can't just let the, when I think when Parul said that you have to give them autonomy and agency, what you need to also do is first guide them into understanding how will you use that autonomy. When you're given a choice, how do you make that choice wisely? What are the factors that you need to look at before you make that choice? And then once you will yourselves know how intuitive the child is, and how the child starts using these skills. And then you can literally let your child out to do take a lot of choices, because you know that the child would have thought about 20 things. And you
Hmm.
might not have to always, like how our parents would drill down. Even now they do it a lot of times, where they'll tell you, do this, do that, do this, do that. They're habituated towards doing this. As a parent, you don't need to helicopter them if you know that you've built these skill sets.
I
And
want to
as a
add something
facilitator,
here,
yeah.
Ritika, because this brought about an interesting memory. So a few months back, my son comes to me and says that he was offered a vape in the school toilet.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, then what did you do?" So I make sure that whenever there's some difficult conversation coming in, I don't react. And I kept calm and I asked him, I said, "Okay, so then what did you do?" He said, "Oh, that was not today. That was 2 months ago." I said, "Oh, you never told me." He said, "Yeah, because I handled it myself." I said, "How did you handle it?" He said, "I refused it then, and I came home. I read about it, what it is, what it constitutes, and what are the health implications that it might have. And then I realized, nah, it's not worth it." And I was so proud. I was like, wow, that's how it should be. I never told him that, oh, this is a bad thing you should do. The only thing I could probably pass on was that before you take a decision, just know more about it. Like you
No
said,
more about
gather the information the right way and know if it is good for you or not. And that, I think, Sunita, will also be a part of the 21st century skill, that you are critically
Right.
thinking and analyzing the
That's empowering
situation.
a child, it's empowering a child
Yeah.
with a skill set to be able to take so many decisions, because we don't really know what they're going to be in after so many years, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
so
let them
important.
figure out the consequences, right? Exactly like your
Yeah,
son
I
has
mean,
done. Yeah.
you can be, you cannot, we need to understand that you cannot control that anyway.
Yeah.
So what you can do is, if you are a connection to the child will come to you when they are in a bad, really bad situation, and you can be their rock. But if you're not a connection to the child, then they'll go out in the world to find out a support system that might be worse than the consequences that you would ever
Yeah.
expect.
Or get their answers from social media, which can be
Of
awful,
course.
right?
Awful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
also knowing where do you get that information from, and how do
From
you figure out whether it's authentic or not. I think
exactly.
that literacy needs to be, some curriculums even have this as a framework given to schools and facilitators. It's, I think, time that all schools have it. It's really important to now understand that. And I think, yeah, I think you had a question on environments, and I think we've gone across all kinds of environments. So,
So when coming to environment, if we have time, I'd like to share that sketch that I was coming
Yes,
across.
ma'am.
Do I have
Please.
the permission?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I want to share the entire screen. Okay. So do you see my screen? Yeah. So this is one of the sketches
Not
that we.
seeing it.
Ma'am, it's
You
yet
can't
to appear.
see.
Not
It's yet
seeing
we
to
it.
appear.
can't see the screen.
Is it coming up? It says on my end. It
Not,
says it's sharing.
No, no, it's not yet coming up. Could you please,
not,
ma'am,
not here.
share again?
Okay. Should I stop share and share again?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Try that.
Okay. Maybe I'll just share that window and see. Now you can see it?
No, no, I'll ask.
No. Anyway, it's okay. We can continue. That's fine. Stop share, because at my end it's showing that it is sharing. Maybe while you're streaming it might be
It's
an
a,
issue.
could it be on a different window?
Hmm.
So do you have to move windows sometimes, like on Google Meet?
I tried sharing the entire screen, and I tried sharing the window. So
Okay.
it is. So the point I want to make is that we did a white paper on neuroarchitecture, so which talks about the power of the environment on the holistic health of children. So the sketch that I was going to show, that in the center, like you said, every parent, every educator, every adult wants the future generations to be happy, right? So happiness, if you see, if you go to the literal definition of happiness, it's not that feeling of feeling good. It's much more than that. So if we go into the real definition of happiness that at least I use, is where the children self actualize and become resilient, because
Ma'am,
when they're resilient, only when. Yeah.
ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Could you please see if it works again? That document can be shared
Okay.
again. We would love
Yeah,
to see
it'll
that.
be easy. Just, you see now.
No,
View
still not.
tabs
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Finally,
Yes.
here.
All right, but do you see it as the size is too small, or do you see it bigger in your window?
Yeah, you'll be
It's a bit
explaining it. So,
small.
like,
Anyway, I can
See
explain.
it.
Yeah, that's okay. So at this center, if you see, these are the positive emotions that we call that we associate with happiness, right? We talk about joy, we talk about competence, we talk about curiosity, we talk about uh, anything positive that you can think of. But if we see from neuroscience perspective, when you are feeling these positive emotions, they're actually impacting the release of neurochemicals in your system, which are called happy hormones. right? So if you all of us might have heard about oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, endorphins. So all these happy hormones are released when we are experiencing these emotions. And when these hormones are released and these emotions are experienced as a result of certain experiences that can come through the environment that we live in. So, in the context of school design, we say that the attributes of the physical environment, here we are particularly talking about the physical environment, that can enrich a child's experience in school. So, we talk about flexible spaces, like Ritika said. So, according to us at EDI, we say that the classroom is the biggest enemy of education and well-being, because it is actually disconnecting you from the rest of the world. And also there are more than 20 ways in which children can learn, but in the classroom there's only one or two ways that can actually be used. So the spaces should be flexible, the environment should be more familiar, home like, it should be legible for the child to move around freely, and so on and so forth. We can go on and on with this. And so when the environment has all these positive attributes, the how do we know they have positive attributes? Because these environments are going to give children a sense of security, a sense of balance, a sense of self-worth, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and you know uh, many of the good experiences that you can think of. And these experiences lead to the release of happy neurochemicals, and hence the goal that you look at is the experience of positive emotions. And if you see these arrows, so the positive emotions are leading to neurochemical release, and neurochemical release is leading to positive emotions. And this neurochemical release is also making you feel secure and happy and free and connected. But at the same time, the outer circle, if you see that it only has one arrow. So this environment is actually the one which is initiating this cycle of positive emotions and experiences. So this is about physical environment. So similarly, we can talk about the social environment, that talks about the relationship of children with the adults in school or at home. So if we see the environment, if you see this outer circle as physical and social environment, the inner circles remain the same. So this sketch to me is very powerful in telling that how much the social and the physical environment at school as well as at home can affect the child and the overall health of the child that the world is struggling today so badly with. So I'll stop here. I hope the it was a little more legible than it looked to me.
It was. It became the full screen. So it was great.
Oh, okay.
Love it. Love the framework. Just a couple of additions that I want to make. I think the physical spaces in our classrooms, and we've now been to probably visited over 100 schools, I think, or maybe more across countries. Bulk of them in India, of course. Most of them are still very much designed for a broadcast method of teaching.
Yeah.
Where there's a teacher standing there, and the teacher's
Mm,
just kind of
mm.
delivering, lecturing, and the
And
student
it
is
is so anti to the 21st century skills that you have.
exactly. And where is the collaboration that the kids?
Yeah,
So I love what Sivam is doing, and possibly what you're doing as well, Parul, in terms of the understanding the environment in such a nuanced fashion, and creating furniture and creating environments where kids can collaborate, or where the teacher becomes a mentor rather than a kind of a deliverer of
yeah.
information and content.
Facilitator, we would say. We call
Facilitator.
teachers, they're more like even the parents and the teachers, they should both be facilitators, or in other words, the gardener approach that we talk about.
Right, exactly. The other thing is, moms. as educators, I mean, clearly we need parents also to be involved. But what is it? I think we need to get clarity collectively as a society on what is the
Yeah.
role. Is it we don't want them to be sitting there and policing them and saying, "Acha, homework kiya hai ki nahi?" And what is are your answers correct? That's
Yeah.
if it is about applying knowledge in a preferably in a kind of a cross subject kind of interdisciplinary fashion rather than here's your math homework, here's your science homework. Instead, how do you apply it? How do you make a bicycle, for instance? There you apply
Mm-hmm.
so many different things. And
I
how?
must add here one thing. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Parents correcting their child's homework is the biggest problem ever. It's
right.
like, you see the child in the class struggling with questions and or whatever, and whatever homework assignment
The
has been
homework
given
is
in
perfect.
to
Yeah,
the child comes perfect. Absolutely. How does the teacher figure out whether this child knows what he's talking about or not? I
yeah.
mean, I think, yeah, asking the child whether you've done it should be what it is. After that,
Yeah.
at least
So
looking at
in
where the
my
child
case,
has
I
done.
ask my child, "Have you done your homework?" And I'm ready to take the answer as no as well. They're like, "Ah,
Yes,
no, I'm not
right.
feeling to." I'm
And
like,
there's usually
"Okay,
an
your
answer,
wish.
a
You
reason
you
for it.
take the consequences. It is your responsibility." So
Sorry, you were talking about
yeah.
a bicycle,
Yeah, no, no. I was just saying, what if those were the kinds of homework that the kids got, where they're kind of interdisciplinary, and kids have to use what they learned to either create something physically or conceptually. And there then the parents can get involved, and they can have, because parents don't know the answers either. It's not like there is and the answer is 42, right? I mean, the parents don't know that either. So so you
yeah.
collectively work, and that can also help with the nurturing the parent child relationship and all of that as well. So that may be something for us to think about, in terms of how education needs to evolve
Yeah,
going
and I want to add to this something very, very important, that when we design schools and we ask them that to what extent you want to push the envelope, the schools and the educators are usually not ready to push the envelope because they know that the parents might not accept the new and innovative ways of teaching and learning. So I guess it's not just about teachers' professional development or not just about changing the curriculum, but again about changing the entire village. The entire community of parents has to be
absolutely.
I
educated.
have to bring in a point over here. I think, and this is a pain area that I constantly address on a daily basis. I'm sure all of you do, both of you do as well. When you have an end project, right, which is a project, and you give the child, scope basically, saying that, okay, these are the skills you have, this is the knowledge that you gained through whatever the unit of inquiry was. And now you have to build, this project with with these limitations. That's it. Like 3 4 limitations cited. Children come out with the best designs and best thoughts. Some of them are feasible, not feasible. Those kind of things come about, and that's a very good way to assess how the child is actually thinking. The point is that we haven't really figured out the right assessment mechanisms to help parents see what is the change that's coming about in their child. And we as educators, I think, still need a lot of work needs to be done here to understand that, what are you giving the child, what are the things that you what are you actually assessing the child on. And when I say assessing them on, what are the skills that you're looking at, how are you seeing whether the child has progressed from a starting position to an achieving state. What are the rubrics that you're sort of evaluating? I think once we sort of get that and the parents can see something, the point is that right now a lot of these things are so abstract. For only those parents who actually understand and are okay with it being abstract are ready to take on the plunge. Many people in India specifically, because we've been brought up in a marks oriented environment where you got a report card at the end of the day. So how do you see and measure and figure out that your child has actually learned something new? It is a very difficult thing for many parents to process. I
So
think
I
once
think
we get
here I would want to add a little bit that at EDI we've recently partnered with a really like experienced educator. His name is Kevin Bartlett, who was
okay,
originally the creator of PYP curriculum, and now he's come up with something called CGC, which is Common Ground Collaborative, and they are very beautifully creating these balanced assessment systems as well, where they have found ways in which parents can actually see what their children are learning, even in the terms of 21st century skills that we talk about, and not just the curriculum that has been,
thank
so
you for this
somebody
because
has
I've
to.
been working
Yeah,
on
you
it,
should.
and I would
Yeah, yeah,
definitely love
you
to
should go for
collaborate.
that.
Me
Yeah,
too.
definitely. You should
We're
look for CGC, Common Ground Collaborative, or just get in
Collaborate.
touch with me. I'll connect you to
Kevin Bartlett.
those
I'll
people.
do that.
Yeah, we are working on it as well. So love to
Hmm.
collaborate. He just one. I think both of you brought up the point about the teachers. Just one more. One is of course the teachers need to understand where they themselves stand in these skills and the importance of skills, and they need to also we need to figure out as an education ecosystem need to figure out how they bring in these skills into the classroom because they already have a portion that they have to cover and so we need to enable them to do it, but at the same time they're also a group of people I've realized with absolutely no disrespect meant at all who are rather insular in that world. And for me, coming as an outsider, I find that a lot of the teachers in traditional schools don't have that much of an idea about what's going on in the world outside and what kind of skills are required for the kids that they are nurturing to have when they actually come out of the school system. So giving teachers that experience to come out and see the world and develop those that understanding so that they can bring in some of that relevant and they understand what the connection between what they're teaching today, whether it's maths or science or literature, connection between that and the outside world also then becomes
I think that's a very brilliant and very important point that you brought up, Sunita. And I think it really needs attention for us to see that teachers are actually doing what they should be doing, because in most of the schools the teachers are so caught up in
yeah,
the minuscule, in the clerical work, in
yeah,
uploading the stuff and managing the new, learning the new softwares,
right,
and whatever
absolutely
has been imposed on them.
on them, yeah,
So I have some friends who are teachers, and they're really really creative people, but they are not able to use that creativity and their curiosity in the school environments, because a day only has 24 hours.
yeah.
So if
And their
you take all
KPIs
their,
are, yeah,
if you're putting all your time and energy into the 80% of the time, they're putting their time and energy into the stuff which is not really useful,
yeah,
which is not
so true,
worthwhile.
yeah,
It's very difficult. Like, we need to think about the holistic health of teachers also. Like we say, the
absolutely.
mother has to be in the right state of mind to handle the child, the teacher also has to be in the great state of mind to be able to handle the
Right.
children as well.
Ma'am,
So
taking a cue from BAs that you told, balance assessment system, I divert this question to Ritika, ma'am, because she is also into content curation and content creation. That you have seen OECD's PISA exam, right?
Yeah.
Program for International Student Assessment, and you have seen like how many countries fare good and how many countries fare on the lower scales. So, does that also impacts how you are creating content for the coming generations?
To some extent, I wouldn't say that we use that as a guideline. I think we're solving larger problems here because what is happening, I think I missed a huge chunk of the conversation to be able to draw too much context, but I am hoping that I still make sense here. This is your question. So with the thing is that I think we need to start developing thinking skills first, and that's I think our core area of work that requires work. When you talk about building things, looking at the point is that I think whenever in India, a lot of schools still follow the syllabus, and what is happening is that we don't understand children too well. So our grade level reading skills and numeracy skills are also fairly, I mean, they're not designed for the child, so to say. I mean, one has to understand, plus we have a very diverse background across the country, right? Children come from a huge level of diversity here. But when you look at it, I think we need to, at our foundational level, address a lot of concerns before we can even talk about and figure out how the PISA and such exams impact us. Um, I think that's where it is. One of the things that we need to sort of understand is how are children learning? How do we figure out? Uh, in fact, even if you forget about PISA, you look at your own internal, asset scores. You look at other scores that you think about. Your the internal grade level assessments that we have. We're actually our early level education requires huge augmentation there. But
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
what we're
PISA
looking at,
has.
yeah,
I was just going to say PISA has limited. I mean, it has some relevance at a very broad macro
yeah, it
level.
does.
I think it helps you compare across countries. I come from a country where we do really well on PISA, but that doesn't mean that the students are being equipped for life.
It's
Uh,
like
they-
GD, right?
Yeah,
they are very good at taking exams, and yeah, I mean, a lot more needs to be done, and if there are ways in which we can augment PISA or other such assessments with some real skills, right, the human skills, that would be
I think as
yeah,
far as education of and learning of any kind is concerned, the worst thing we could ever do to it is standardization, and that's what we've always been trying to do at every level.
that
I
resonates a lot.
Yeah.
yeah.
So perfectly answered by all three of you. And now we have a question from the audience coming up for Dr. Parul Minas. So it's from Mr. Shubham Yadav, who says, "Hello, Dr. Parul Minas. Balancing motherhood and a career in research and innovation is demanding. What strategies have you found most effective in managing these responsibilities?"
So I think for me, I just got lucky in the way that I was able to take first 2 years totally off from work when my child was born. I was a practicing architect, but I shut off my practice and I told my husband that if you're ready to support whatever you're earning, I can, manage that. But these 2 years, I want to just be there for the kid. And I know that most mothers cannot afford to do that, but I always recommend that if you can, you must. It is worth it in every possible way. And it's never that something is the time is running out or you are losing on something. So with the kind of versatility that the world today offers, you just have to be ready to unlearn and relearn. Like, I am an architect by profession. When my child was born, I was just a bachelor in architecture. But after he was born and after he grew up, I gradually upgraded myself. I did a master's, I did a PhD. Then I'm into this research and innovation thing. And trust me, as children grow up, they keep giving you more and more time for yourself. But the priority has to be clear. You have to know that that the child has to be your first priority, that when they need you, you should be there for them. And I don't know, I maybe I'm just fortunate to be able to do that. But I think in most of the cases it can be done, except for some cases where there are many other struggles which come in the way. But still, I guess it is always possible to make and maintain that connection, which is the foundation of the mother and child relationship.
Exactly. So, if you have any point to add, Sunita ma'am, Ritika ma'am, to this. question.
So
I,
I had a
I'm,
different approach.
yeah,
So
go ahead, Ritika.
I had a different time when my daughter was born. And essentially, I was running a startup and we were doing very well. We were running a digital marketing agency at that point of time. And it was something that, was extremely demanding in terms of project timelines and stuff. So at some point of time, I realized that I was just giving in too much. And my daughter was possibly, when my daughter was around 8, 10 months old, I'd always nurtured this idea of of being in this education space, and I wanted to start a newspaper for children. So I thought that at some point of time I'd collect enough funds and maybe start that up and let go of the agency. I had to actually take a call, and we sat down and did a proper financial planning between my husband and me. And you know what we realized? We realized that we had enough funds for me to start that newspaper for children. And the moment I gathered uh, those funds, I decided to wind things down. And then I started working a little at a time, and I started spending more time with my child. And I think that really benefited. But it had to be a decision that had to be taken.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate. I've got good education to back me up. I knew that should at any point of time I would want to take up a job, I would be able to do that because of that immense hard work that was put in the early years, right? I mean, and there's no denying that if you have a good education, you can literally take a lot of risks. So that's what I did at that point of time, and I worked a little lesser in the early years till she turned 5. And then it's only recently that I've now she doesn't need me as much because she she has she's had me at that security stage. She knows what to do. She's a fairly independent girl. So now I have a lot of time, and now she's watching me, and that's the best part, that
Mm.
she's seeing how that hard work is being put in.
Yeah.
And it's such a learning experience for her. So we are now at a stage, but it wasn't an easy decision to take at all. I mean, it was difficult.
I want
Yeah.
to add here something that during my PhD, I was almost at the verge of giving it up because it was too taxing. I was teaching at an architecture college also at that time. And I said, and I had some health issues, and I was like, oh, I don't think it's worth it. So I'm going to quit. And then after a few days of taking that decision, I was like, no, I don't want my child to see me as a failure and shouldn't feel that, when there was a little push and a little hard work required, she backed out. He should see me to put in that hard work and then get what I want. And I did exactly that. And it made me much more happier as a person and more confident and more connected as a mother. So
So just one more
that's
thing I'd
really
like to add.
important.
It's always a difficult call. I think it's just so difficult, to be putting that time out away from your child, and it's very demanding as a
It
parent as well.
is.
And then doing a PhD must have been like mind-boggling at that point of time. So
Yeah.
for me, one thing I had to take that break for was because, in between, my husband was traveling a lot, and we have to also take a call on you know whether who's going to be around, because you both of you can't be missing in action, right?
Hmm.
So at some point of time we had to, so that call was an important one for us. And it was, like I said, extremely, to give in or to take a step back is always very difficult. And but the
Yeah.
thing is that if you have good education and if you have it in you, you really can pull yourself forward. I mean, there is no reason for you to believe that, taking that little bit of a sabbatical smartly will not, will be
Hmm.
downslide. You might
That
have
you'll
to
be
work a
left
little harder.
behind or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you won't be left high and dry. Hopefully, and all of us, that's why those 21st century skills are required, right? To be able to deal with adversity and to figure out what to do at what time, and then not just be looking at everything like a template, that because I am a feminist and because I've been, I've worked so hard, I need to be, why should I give up my career and this, that, and the other? You have to look at things with a balanced viewpoint. And I think that's what we're trying to also inculcate in our children, be it, hopefully it won't be as gendered, you know, as years pass by, and
And we
it
should
could
learn to
be
ask for help and not be we don't
Yes.
need to be
right.
superwomen anymore.
So true.
Absolutely.
So true. And the other one I would add is pick your battles. Don't try and
Yeah.
Yes, very
win
wisely.
everything. And
Exactly.
in my case, it was things like grades and stuff. As long as she was happy in a good school, she was learning well, and not having. See, I mean, she did have behavioral issues, but not, the usual tantrums, but not major disruptive ones. So I was okay. So rather not spend all the time I had kind of admonishing her and scolding her, instead be have a more positive relationship with
Yeah.
her. So I would say pick
That's
your battles.
lovely.
Yes, that turned out into a pretty engaging discussion. And now we have
Yeah.
a question for Sunita ma'am. Ma'am, what is required of Indian employers to support mothers who are returning to work after their maternity leave?
Oh wow. How long is it still 3 months in India? It
6 months
used to be.
now.
It's 6 months. Yeah. So in a changing world, right? I mean, in a world that is changing so quickly, I can imagine it's a big challenge for working moms to get back. And I mean, on the one hand, employers are definitely realizing that they need good people will always be taken back, and there are laws protecting them and all of that. So that's the good thing. But in order to, I think in 6 months a lot changes, and these days the large corporations constantly have restructuring. So half the people or you used to know when you were there are probably not there when you go back. Your boss has changed, things have changed. So possibly, I mean, I don't know, there's a simple answer to this, but companies definitely need to figure out a way to re-engage, reorient returning moms back into the workplace. And other than that, and then I think if you're a really large company, they can do things like having daycare on the premises. I mean, I think all the companies I worked with, we tried to bring in some cases it worked. In some locations it might not work in every location. If you have the daycare, then if the mother's still feeding, then you can go check on your mom. But all of that requires to be a large company. If you're a small company employing 10 people or 15 people, somebody leaving for 6 months, for small businesses, I can also see the other point of view. I mean, for large enterprises, there are lots that they can do in terms of orientation, reskilling, the environment in the office, in the workplace, all of that for moms when they come back. But if you're a small business and you only have 8 people and one person takes 6 months off, it's really, really hard. Who's going to do that work? And when they come back, do you have the resources to actually retrain them? So these, and then on top of that, now we are also talking about paternity leave. I mean, we just came off one of the social the social group, that the NGO that we work with in Singapore, and we were just discussing 4 months of paid maternity leave for mothers and 4 months of paternity leave for fathers. So for one baby, it's 8 months of time that somebody is going to be, the productivity is lost. So
So we should probably engage in making lesser babies, that means.
but we should have a discussion. I cannot agree more with you. The planet is overcrowded.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably the most pithy comment we've heard in this whole
So,
session.
so that way in your lifetime, you'll have to take only 6 months off, I guess.
Yeah,
That's not a big deal.
yeah. So I mean, these are big and difficult issues, but yeah, I don't know if it helped, but yes.
Perfect, perfectly answered. So I think so that covers almost all the points that we had envisioned for this session. So should we go for a conclusion, or would you like to add anything? Parul ma'am, Ritika ma'am,
We
Sunita
go
ma'am.
for an entire day, so it's better that you wind it up.
Thank you so much. So yes, it was indeed an engaging session, and I had to note down so many points. And of course, let's acknowledge the points that you all shared. First with Ritika ma'am, yes, your main point was parents need to give or spend quality time with their children. Pretty impressive. Then we had Sunita ma'am covering so many points on how critical skills are important for kids, and there was her quote that happiness, in my view, is the best measure of success. Then to Dr. Parul Minhas, who gave many good points, and the most important one was we need to stay more grounded in the wake of more AI and emergence of other technologies. And there were so many beautiful points that were covered by all three of you, and I thank you for participating today. And on behalf of Sivom, I of course extend heartfelt gratitude for making it today on this special occasion. And of course there are more LinkedIn live events coming in future. And on the 17th of May, we are going to have a special session dedicated to informal learning spaces, and that too on the occasion of International Day of Museums. So that is again going to be an exciting session coming up next. And this was all about the session. Thanks to all of you for joining, and thanks to all of you for sharing your enormous wisdom with our audience. That was indeed a pretty great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
It
Thank
so
was
much.
you.
amazing
Thank
meeting
you.
all of you.
Yes, same
Thank
here.
you.
So
Meeting
good.
all of
Thank
you.
you so much, Akshay, and the entire team at
Yeah.
Sivo. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Akshay.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Bye. You have to end the meeting, I think. I don't